In the blistering August heat of 636 CE, on a high plateau overlooking the deep ravines of the Yarmuk River, two worlds collided. One was a fading superpower, the Eastern Roman Byzantine Empire, desperate to hold on to its ancestral lands. The other was a rising tide from the desert, the Rashidun Caliphate, an Islam rise, driven by a new faith and led by a military genius who had never known defeat, as 15,000 Muslims against 150,000 Romans. The atmosphere of that week remains one of the most cinematic and high-stakes chapters in human history. The prologue, the gathering storm. Emperor Heraclius, having just defeated the Persians after decades of war, was not about to lose his jewel of the East, Syria, to desert nomads. He assembled a massive multi-ethnic coalition: Greeks, Armenians, Christian Arabs, Ghassanids, and Slavs. This was the juggernaut, a sea of iron, cataphracts, heavy cavalry, and disciplined legions. Facing them was a smaller, lightly armored, but highly mobile force of veterans from the Ridda Wars. At their head stood Khalid ibn al-Walid, the sword of Allah. Khalid knew he could not win a war of attrition. He needed a battlefield that would turn the Romans' numbers into a cage. He chose the Yarmuk Plains, a flat expanse perfect for cavalry, bordered by treacherous, deep ravines. Day 1 and 2, the test of wills. The battle began with the traditional exchange of champions. Single combatants from both sides rode out to duel in the no-man's land. These were the elite, and as the Romans fell to the swift blades of the Mubarazun, the Muslim dueling specialists, a tremor of unease ran through the imperial ranks. On the second day, the Byzantine commander Vahan launched a massive dawn attack, hoping to catch the Muslims during their morning prayers. The Roman center held firm, while their flanks crashed into the Muslim wings. Twice, the Muslim right flank broke and fled toward their camp. It was here that one of history's most unique rallies occurred. The women in the Muslim camp, including Hind bint Utbah, rose up. Armed with tent poles and stones, they shamed the retreating men, shouting, "If you flee, you are not our husbands." Driven by the stinging words of their own wives and mothers, the men turned back and charged the Romans with a renewed, desperate fury, pushing them back to their original lines. Day 3 and 4, the Day of Lost Eyes. By the fourth day, the Romans were frustrated. Vahan unleashed his heavy cavalry and a rain of archery so dense it was nicknamed the Day of Lost Eyes, because of the thousands of Muslim soldiers blinded by the barrage. The Muslim lines were buckling. The Roman cataphracts, men and horses clad entirely in mail, seemed unstoppable. Khalid, watching from the rear, saw his moment. He didn't just have an army, he had the mobile guard, an elite 4,000-strong cavalry reserve. Like a surgeon with a scalpel, he led this guard in a lightning strike, hitting the Roman flank exactly where it was most extended. The Roman momentum died in a chaos of sand and steel. Day 5, the lull in the trap. On the fifth day, seeing the carnage and the exhaustion of his men, Vahan sent an emissary to Khalid to offer a truce. To the surprise of his own generals, Khalid refused. Khalid knew something Vahan didn't. The Byzantine army was a collection of different ethnicities who didn't trust each other, and they were now terrified. He spent the day reorganizing all his scattered cavalry into one massive, unified striking force of 8,000 horsemen. He was no longer going to defend, he was going to hunt. Day 6, the final reckoning. The final day was a masterpiece of tactical maneuvering. As the sun rose, Khalid launched a general offensive. But while the infantry engaged in the center, Khalid's massive cavalry wings swept around the Roman left. The Roman cavalry, separated from their infantry by Khalid's brilliant positioning, found themselves with nowhere to maneuver. They were driven off the field, leaving the Roman infantry, the heart of the Byzantine army, exposed and abandoned. Panic set in. Khalid drove the mass of 100,000-plus men toward the western ravine of Wadi Rukad. A sudden dust storm blew from the desert, blinding the Romans as they retreated. In the confusion, thousands of soldiers, many of whom had reportedly chained themselves together in ranks to prevent flight, stumbled over the 100-meter cliffs into the river below. The Byzantine army didn't just lose, it ceased to exist. The aftermath. When the news reached Emperor Heraclius in Antioch, he realized the Levant was lost. He famously looked toward the south and whispered, Farewell, a long farewell to Syria, my fair province. Thou art an infidel's enemies now. The victory at Yarmouk allowed the Muslims to capture Jerusalem, Egypt, and eventually the North African coast.